From the nonpartisan Maddy Institute and the California channel at the state capitol, this is a Maddy Policy Brief. Welcome back. I'm Mark Kepler with the Maddy Institute. In 2006, California's enacted 9 statewide bond measures authorizing more than $70 billion in financing. While there's been noticeable improvements on state bond oversight, more needs to be done regarding transparency and accountability, particularly on issues like high-speed rail. Our guest is Carole from the nonpartisan Little Hoover Commission, here to discuss a recently completed 5-month study of state bond programs in California. So how big is the state bond debt? How much are we talking about here, and how big a part of that, paying off that debt, is part of the state annual budget?
Sure. So as of last June, we had $75 billion in outstanding general obligation bonds. Now that figure moves because a couple times a year the state treasurer sells more bonds, and simultaneously we're paying some off. So there's also some $27.6 billion that could be authorized. So it's
on top of that?
Yes.
Okay.
But simultaneously, some of the debt, is 20, 30 years old and it'll be retired. One of the things I think, as you asked, how much are we paying on it per year? So right now, $7.7 billion a year. How does that fit into the overall budget? It's about 6.5% of the total budget.
And just to kind of put that in perspective, I hope I have my numbers right. I'm sure the audience will correct me if I'm wrong, but that's about what we spend on prisons-ish.
Yeah.
A little bit less maybe what we spend on prisons, but that's a significant amount, just paying principal and interest on the bonds.
Right.
So we're talking earlier about Governor Schwarzenegger and some of the things he did with an executive order in 2006 to improve accountability and transparency. What did he do, and did it work?
Yeah, to some degree. It's sort of a mixed bag. I think, as I mentioned earlier in the show, some departments followed through better than others, but it was basically a 3-part plan. The first part was, before you give out the money, have a plan, have a strategy. The second part was assess how you're doing midstream. Third thing, audit after you're done, make sure the money was spent as it was supposed to be, and put it all on a website and make it transparent. So did it work? I think for some departments, you could go to their website and you can find a lot of information. You can go down to some of the streets where some of the transportation bond paid for a bridge to be fixed or an overpass. And yet on others, I think we mentioned the education bond, not so much.
Okay, so you also mentioned in your report a law that was passed, SB 1029, I think it is, for those who care about the number, in 2016. That was an important step forward. And you say that it holds promise for greatly increased transparency. What exactly did it do? Okay,
so I think it's interesting to know where it came from. There was some alleged embezzlement from bond money in the Bay Area.
That'll get people's attention.
Yeah, so it got the attention of the state treasurer, who formed a task force on bond accountability. Simultaneously, the Senate did some oversight hearings, and out of that, they came out with a laundry list of things that could be improved. But one of those led to this bill being enacted, and what it gives the state treasurer, a committee underneath the treasurer, the opportunity to annually collect money on all outstanding debt for locals as well as states. So they have information now, and they have a website called Debt Watch that you can go to and you can learn a lot. But now it's going to be much more dynamic.
Do you need a PhD to use that website?
No.
Okay, that's good.
No, I can use it. It's quite amazing.
Okay, so it's pretty helpful in terms of people, if they want to follow what the debt is for local and state governments, They can go there.
And then this new bill is going to make that information even better. It's going to make it more up to date. It's going to come in annually, and it requires more information be provided. So it means that locals in particular are going to have to do a little bit more homework before they authorize more debt.
Yeah, that's interesting, because people sometimes have no idea. Sometimes they're just adding more and more debt. They're not realizing there's already quite a bit of debt you got to pay off.
Yeah.
You had made, or you being the Little Hoover Commission, made some recommendations to improve state bond oversight. What were those recommendations?
So the recommendations that we made, this was an update, and they really just build on our earlier report requiring, as we applauded the 3-step program that the Schwarzenegger administration put in place, not all bonds were doing that. Part of it was some of the bonds were enacted after 2006 when he put out his executive order. So you have high-speed rail where you don't really have anything. You can't find it. It's very difficult to find information. On the other hand, in 2014, the voters enacted a water bond. Well, the water bond had bond accountability built into it, So you go to natural resources and you can find all sorts of information. So what we were saying is make it all consistent so that every time a bond is enacted, we get the same information. We put it out there so people can go and see, oh, look, this is what they did in my community, and this is where the money went. And
it would seem to be that the website should have information on all these bonds consistently so we can compare apples to apples.
Right.
You know what you're paying for. You also talked a little bit about resources and money being available to make this happen. That's a concern?
Well, with the legislation being enacted that is going to enable this committee to collect more information, we're not quite sure how they're going to do that, how much information they're going to collect, how granular is it going to be. So we wanted to just make sure, because we were supportive of that legislation, we think it's a good idea to make sure that whatever within reason is needed to implement it, that should be there.
Okay, well, thank you for that review of accountability and transparency for state bonds. For a more in-depth analysis of this and other public policy issues important to Californians, please log on to our website at maddyinstitute.org and click on the Policy Analysis tab.